This is the Healing Podcast brought to you by MarinHealth. I'm Bill Klaproth. Rachel, welcome. I understand that you have type 1 diabetes. Can you share your journey that you've had with diabetes?
Yeah. Hi, Bill. Thanks so much for having me on. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 4. So I have been living with diabetes, or as I like to say, thriving with diabetes for nearly 30 years now.
Thriving with diabetes. Wow, I like how you put that. It's a way to get a good positive spin on it, right?
Yep. Had it for a long time. I feel like I'm a veteran to this. So it's just part of me now.
Yeah. So because you have type 1 diabetes, did that play a role in you becoming a nurse?
Absolutely. I was actually a career change nurse. So I worked for 5 years in public relations and marketing. But during COVID, I, like many people, started to kind of reevaluate my life and how I was contributing to the world and realized that I really wanted to help people with diabetes. So I went back to school, became a registered nurse with the ultimate goal of becoming a diabetes educator. And I feel extremely fortunate and grateful that I've achieved just that.
That is really cool. Can you share your credentials and your role at Braden Diabetes Center?
Yes, I am a diabetes nurse specialist at the MarinHealth Braden Diabetes Center. I work both inpatient in the hospital and outpatient. It's a really cool job and it's really special to me, especially because MarinHealth is my home hospital that I grew up going to.
Well, how cool is that?
Very cool.
So you said you have had diabetes since you've been 4 years old. You would be the perfect person to ask this question. Can you explain some of the emotional and psychological challenges that come with managing diabetes?
Yes. Diabetes is easy on paper when you think about it, right? You check your blood sugar, you take your medication, you eat healthy, you exercise. You should be all good. But in reality, diabetes is so much more than that. It's so much more difficult than it looks on paper. Living with a chronic condition that you know is never going to go away is something that's heavy that you carry with you throughout your life, especially a condition like diabetes that has so much stigma associated with it. And also, many of us who live with diabetes, whether we do it consciously or not, we see our blood sugars as almost a reflection of ourselves. So when our blood sugar is high, we feel bad about ourselves. We feel like we're a failure. We're failing ourselves and our body. And that can be really challenging. One of the most challenging parts I see about living with diabetes is that every day is different. There's something like over 42 factors that can influence blood sugar. So you can eat the same thing at the same time of day with the same starting blood sugar and do the exact same thing afterwards and end up with a completely different result from one day to the next, all because maybe you're starting to get a little cold, you're getting sick, or maybe you didn't get enough sleep the night before, or maybe you're a little dehydrated. All of these things can impact blood sugar, and it makes every day so different and so difficult to anticipate what's going to happen next.
And when you say this is something that you have to deal with your whole life, that's always in the back of your mind, right?
Absolutely. And that's a lot to carry throughout your life.
And you mentioned there is a stigma about people with diabetes. What is that, and what do you have to deal with?
Yeah, a lot of people have heard of diabetes and think that it's caused by eating too much sugar, which just simply is not the case. There's so many factors that play into developing diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Genetics play a huge role, and every day we're finding new research that's leading to genetics playing such a huge role in the development of diabetes. It's not just because somebody's eating a bunch of sugar or somebody is not very active. I know plenty of patients I see in the hospital with diabetes who are very physically fit, who eat really healthy, and they're so shocked when they develop diabetes. A lot of it comes back to genetics.
So you say that. I have a friend, thin guy. You look at him and go, this guy is the picture of health. He was recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So you never really know, and genetics do really play a big part. So tell us, what strategies or coping mechanisms have helped you manage the mental and emotional aspect of diabetes?
Well, I mentioned that every day is different. which can make it challenging. But on the flip side of that, every day's different and it's an opportunity to try again. So if you feel like, man, this day my blood sugar was not in range and I had a difficult time managing my diabetes, you always can go to bed and wake up the next day and try again. It's super important to separate yourself from your diabetes as well. I mentioned that a lot of people with diabetes, we associate our blood sugars as kind of a reflection on ourselves. It's so important to separate yourself from your diabetes. It can be difficult, but it's something that's a continuous process to work on. Diabetes is relenting. It's there every day. So you just got to flip it around and think of it as an opportunity to try again.
Yeah, relenting. And certainly we can hear that in your voice. And you said you've got to separate yourself from your diabetes, right? So that's interesting. So what are some ways you let go of your diabetes while still living a healthy life? When you say separate yourself from diabetes, is that the letting go of it?
Yes, it is so important when you live with diabetes. It's so important to balance living a healthy life with simply living your life. One thing that I do when I'm feeling overwhelmed with my diabetes is I try to leverage diabetes technology as much as possible. So I wear a continuous glucose monitor or a CGM, which is continuously reading my blood sugar, sending it to an app on my phone into my insulin pump. And I leverage that technology. If the glucose sensor isn't alarming me, if it's not sending me an alert saying my blood sugar is high or low, then there's no problem. If I'm not getting alerts from my CGM, then I can assume my blood sugar is within range. And that's one way I try to leverage technology to let go a little bit. I don't have to always be looking at my CGM and checking my blood sugars on my app all the time because it's going to tell me if my blood sugar is out of range.
So I imagine that gives you some peace of mind when that CGM is not going off. It allows you to let go of your diabetes. So let me ask you this. In our everyday life, and especially your role as a nurse, you have stressors throughout the day. I imagine that can wreak havoc on your blood sugar. So does stress impact your blood sugar in such a negative way that it can impact your diabetes?
Absolutely. Physiologically, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, raises blood sugar. So if you're in a stressful situation, you may find that your blood sugar starts to go up, which in turn, when you're somebody with diabetes who's continuously watching your blood sugar go up because of stress can cause more stress. So it's kind of a vicious cycle there. It is so important to manage your stress as somebody who lives with diabetes. It's a key part of diabetes management, but it's easier said than done, of course.
So always try to manage your stress and let go, as you say, separate yourself from your diabetes. Is there a role that confidence plays in diabetes management? And if it does, how do you build confidence?
Confidence is paramount to taking control of your diabetes. If you're not confident, you're going to let your diabetes push you around. Something I heard somebody say once is, I have diabetes, it does not have me. Don't let diabetes push you around. Channel that energy, feeling confident about counting your carbohydrates, feeling confident about determining an insulin dose, having the confidence to be spontaneous. These are all essential to diabetes management and to feeling like you're living your life. So confidence absolutely plays a role.
So what advice would you give to someone newly diagnosed with diabetes who is struggling emotionally?
The number one thing that I say to people who are newly diagnosed with diabetes is you will be okay. Try your best. Try to take your medication, try to eat healthy, try to exercise, try to check your blood sugar. More than likely, you will be okay. Diabetes is hard. It is really hard. And I know because I have diabetes. We all go through seasons of being more engaged with our diabetes and less engaged with our diabetes. You're not going to be on at all times. Do your best, try your best, and you will be okay.
So are there resources that you would recommend for people struggling with the emotional side of diabetes?
I highly recommend connecting with other people who have diabetes. There is a thriving community of people with diabetes on social media. I've connected with so many people online who just really understand what I'm going through. Also, the Braden Diabetes Center, we host virtual diabetes support groups every month. So we have a type 1 support group and we have a type 2 support group. They're all virtual, and it's a great space for people with diabetes to connect. There's so much power in connecting with other people who just get it. And, we don't go through life alone. So why deal with diabetes alone?
I would imagine for your patients, once they know that you also have diabetes, that's got to be comforting to them, or they view you as a resource. Would that be true?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think that it helps me a lot in my role as a diabetes nurse as well. I understand what it feels like to have low blood sugar, have high blood sugar, be afraid of low blood sugar, be afraid of high blood sugar. I understand what it feels like to be newly diagnosed with diabetes, although it was a long time ago for me. I get it. Understand to an extent what it feels like for your support people, your partner, to be around somebody with diabetes. I think I can put myself in the shoes of my patients in a way that allows me to really help them.
Absolutely. I can certainly see that. Well, this has been great, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time. This has been very informative, and I know people listening to this, I'm sure, have found this to be very useful. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
You can do it. People with diabetes, you can do it. Just do your best. You're going to be okay. Lean on people who can support you. We can always support you here at the Braden Center, and find other people with diabetes who you can connect with. Those are my number one tips. You're going to be okay, though.
You're going to be okay. You can do it, and have confidence, right?
Absolutely.
You have diabetes. Diabetes doesn't have you, darn it.
Exactly.
Rachel, thank you so much. This has really been great. I've enjoyed talking with you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Bill.
You bet. And once again, that's Rachel Zucker-Wong. And to learn more, please visit mymarinhealth.org/BDC. Once again, mymarinhealth.org/BDC. And if you found this podcast helpful, please share it on your social channels and check out the full podcast library for topics of interest to you. This is the Healing Podcast brought to you by Marin Health. Thanks for listening.